We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome
hair.
back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube, and always rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports, and you can download the show everywhere that you get your podcast on your phone. And today, we're talking about some offensive linemen, and we're breaking it down, and we have some incredible position profiles for you today. And if you want to download them, feel free to click the link down below in the description, and you can download an entire PDF of all the different player profiles that we have created. If you're listening, you can see what I talk about and what I talk on with some of these graphics. Some really, really interesting stats out there too, especially from an offensive lineman perspective, because there's not a lot of stats that back up some offensive linemen. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about why maybe Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, you'll feel a little bit better. On the interior, we'll have some questions still, but I'm excited to go through this. And as we always do, we'll talk about our departures, our depth chart, our full player breakdowns, and then also the over-unders. And last but not least, did we get better at the entire offensive line position? This will be a little interesting because every single position group, we've said we've been better. But offensive line, we better be better. So we'll be talking about that today. And also training camp starts. People report to training camp in under a week. So it's exciting times. But let's get started, shall we? Let's talk about the departures on the offensive line. And we really had 2 major departures on the offensive line. That's Lucas Patrick and Cody Whitehair. Now, when we hear these names, I don't think a lot of us are really kind of like, it's sad to see Cody Whitehair go, but as we know, Cody Whitehair really wasn't the same player that we saw last season. And same thing, like Lucas Patrick just never was really the guy at the center position. And yes, he knew the system. Yes, he understood it. But I still go back to, I have never seen a player get tossed aside more in my life than Lucas Patrick. When it came down to pass blocking, it seemed like he was just a disgrace that someone was able to just pick up and toss aside. It was always very, very kind of sad to see. So good riddance. They're now no longer on the team, but now let's talk about the 2023 to 2024 depth chart for the Chicago Bears at this offensive line position. Because we're feeling a lot better about how this was looking last season. Because we had Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, then we had Cody Whitehair. Hey, we're moving him to center, right? Like that's what we were saying. He should be starting over Lucas Patrick. And then Nate Davis at right guard and Darnell Wright at right tackle. But last season, injuries happened. Tevin Jenkins went down. Braxton Jones was down with the neck injury. Cody Whitehair was banged up and injured. And Nate Davis, we know about his loss of his mother. And that was rattling him the whole time. The only person that was always there was Darnell Wright, the rookie. Everyone else, all over the place. But when you look at our backups too, last year, heading into training camp, we had Kellen Diesch as the backup left tackle, Jatiri Carter as the backup left guard, Lucas Patrick backup center, Dieter Iseland backup right guard, and Larry Borum the backup right touckle. And now we got to talk about third stringers. Bobby Haskins at left tackle, Josh Lugg at left guard, Doug Kramer at center, and Lorenz Metz at right guard, and the Alex Leatherwood at right tackle. Remember that whole discussion? Like, I remember some shows being like, Leatherwood, watch out. And us fans of this show, you knew that our stance on Leatherwood was like, oh boy. Just got to cut him. You might need to cut him and just kind of eat the money. So they did. And ultimately, now we have our new offensive line depth chart. And when we look at this, we still have, and I actually forgot to update Ryan Bates' photo. Even though Ryan Bates, I know he doesn't look like Cody Whitehair. So I do need to update that. But our starting lineup is Braxton Jones at left tackle, Tevin Jenkins again at left guard. And really the only update is at the center position. Brought in Ryan Bates to start at center, even though it might be a position battle with Coleman Shelton. And same thing, Nate Davis at right guard, Darnell Wright at right tackle. And when we look at the backups, this is where we had some updates. Larry Borum and Doug Kramer are still out here, and same thing with Jatiri Carter, but we bring in Matt Pryor, a veteran that is used to a similar system like this at the right guard position, and also Karan Amagazi, the rookie we drafted. But when you look farther down the depth chart, Avion Collins, someone who we brought in last season, is still there as a backup tackle. Jake Curhan as the backup right tackle. And then in the guard position, Bill Murray, not the actor, at right guard for the third string. Same thing with Jerome Carvin and also Theo Benedette. So the depth of the offensive line has changed, has made some shuffling, but really the biggest update is to this center position. So let's get started and talk about some of these player breakdowns and really go into, did this team, where's this team at, right? And how do we feel about this offensive line? So first off, let's start with Braxton Jones, left tackle out of Southern Utah, 25 years old, going into his third season, 6'5", 310, has a cap hit of just a little bit over $1 million. And last season, some of the stats only allowed, according to PFF, 2 sacks last season, and had a PFF pass grade of 70.8, which was 31st, a PFF run grade of 68.2, which was 30th, a PFF pass blocking efficiency rate of 95.8, which is solid. It's for a tackle, 95 is kind of like that average, so right around average from a left tackle perspective, and a PFF grade of 68.8. And also PFF did have him as, I believe it was a top 32 tackle in the NFL. And also a little details about this too. He was placed on IR on week 3 and missed a total of 6 games due to that neck injury. So my big question is about this neck injury, because there was the rumors about David Bakhtiari potentially being a Chicago Bear and being the favorite to be the left tackle. Braxton Jones, my initial question is, well, do they not like Braxton? Or is there something wrong with his neck? Because neck injuries are always something that's serious. So that is my big question for him is, how is that neck? Is he going to be able to come back fully healthy? Because last season when I was watching the tape, I didn't see the same aggressiveness that I saw as a run blocker that I saw in his rookie season. He was one of the best run blockers that I've seen on tape in his rookie season. He had speed, he had power, he had the length. And then last season, I didn't really see that. But I will say last season, he did progress to me as a pass blocker. But also, I want to bring this up there too, because like I said, stats when it comes down to offensive linemen are a little bit difficult to chart. So I want to bring up ESPN stats as well, because not a lot of companies track offensive line production. So ESPN had Braxton Jones as the 5th highest pass block win percentage at 93% among all tackles in the NFL. Number 5. And also, they had him as the number 6 best offensive tackle when it came to run block win percentage at 79%. So take it what you will. These are just stats that I'm providing you from ESPN's ESPN's advanced analytics, that this is what they think of Braxton Jones. And I will say on tape, I don't think he's as bad as some people say that he is. I think that, yes, he has room and areas to grow. And like I said, with run blocking, I think if he's fully healthy, I expect him to kind of play with that same aggressiveness, nastiness, and speed that he did his rookie season. But it is promising that he is taking steps forward when it comes to pass blocking. So the big question, can he be that franchise left tackle that we need? And this is a big year for him. This is a big season, because with offensive linemen, give them 2 years. On this third season that he's entering, this is now okay, if you remember, Colton Miller was terrible his first 2 seasons and then brought it all together that third season. Offensive tackles need time to develop. So I'm looking at him going in here going, okay, why were the Bears looking at offensive tackles? Why is there this rumor about Bakhtiari? There's no rumor that is saying like, hey, the Bears are talking with him. It's more of the betting rumors around him. But Braxton Jones, you got to prove this. And I think this is a huge year for him because, yeah, the ESPN win rates, that's cool to see. That's fun to see. But ultimately, are you above average? Are you going to be that great left tackle that we want to have on this team? And I hope that he is. I like Braxton Jones. Everyone that talks to him says that he's just an amazingly nice guy. And he has speed. He has the size. He has the length. And I think it's an incredible success story of someone that you drafted day 3 becoming your left tackle. And for me, Braxton Jones, though, this is a big year. This is a big season. Can you show that you're the guy at left tackle? I hope he is. I'm a big Braxton fan, and I really hope that he just kind of puts some of those haters to rest because he's not bad. Like, let's just get that out of here. He's not a bad tackle. Can you improve? Yes, you can definitely improve. You can improve with that. So I think this season is important to say, where is he at on the tackle spectrum? Is he a Charles Leno, where you go, okay, he's a tackle that you can always move on from. So where's our next improvement? So we'll see what ultimately happens with that. But now let's go. I'm just going to go down the line. So we had Braxton Jones. Let's go to the left guard, Tevin Jenkins, out of Oklahoma State, going into his 4th season as a Chicago Bear, 6'6", 321, and this is his final season of that rookie deal. He's 26 years old, cap hit of $2.6 million, and according to the PFF stats, 3 sacks allowed last season. He had the 16th highest pass blocking grade among interior offensive linemen at 68.6, a run grade of 71.7, which was good for 13th among interior guards, and a pass blocking efficiency rate of 97.4, which is good. It's, yet again, when you're interior, you're looking at more that like 97%, 98% when you're more of a guard player. And then PFF grade, which was the 14th highest among guards at 72.6. So the big question, can he stay healthy? I think that is the biggest piece. We know this guy can play. And we know that he's a fan favorite. We know that people love Tevin Jenkins. And we know that he's going into this final year of his deal. But it's the health. It's the, can you be out there? Can you be out there for every snap? He played 12 games last season. And I will say it's a little unfair to him because no one really played every single snap except for Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright was healthy and played all the different games, while Tevin Jenkins, Darnell Wright was the most healthy. Everyone else was missing games too. And I think it's a little unfair to Tevin, but still, it's still the reality. You're always banged up. And that's why I think we're all saying prayers for Tevin Jenkins so that he can be healthy, because we all want him to be a Chicago Bear for the long term. And also, just in case if anyone's curious, I do have the ESPN grades out there as well. ESPN 94% pass block win percentage, which is good for 19th among guards, or I actually think it's all interior players. And then 75% ESPN run block win percentage, which was good for 4th. So it just solidifies, it just kind of reiterates. We know that this guy is a crazy good, one of the best run blockers because of his size, his speed, and just the power that he plays with. He's going to move you back. And then the pass blocking, he's still very good. I still think that there's some inexperience in his tape, but, switching from right guard to left guard was a big switch. And even when Nate Davis was down, he did play some right guard. And I'll tell you, that was some of my favorite Tevin Jenkins tape to watch. Tevin Jenkins, to me, should be right guard because Nate Davis should be on the left, and he should potentially not be on the team, depending on how he looks during training camp. But Tevin Jenkins looked really good at right guard, looked good at left guard as well. And yeah, it just all boils down to, if he's going to be re-signed, the Bears have to feel that he can stay healthy. And that's why I think when you hear that Tevin Jenkins people reached out to the Bears and they didn't want to engage in contract extension talks, I think you're going to see the same piece the same way that they attacked the whole Jalen Johnson situation. Hey, Jalen, we like you, but you really haven't been healthy. You really haven't put together this true, full, healthy season. I think if they're going to re-sign him, they're going to wait and see, all right, Let's see how healthy you are. Prove to us that we need to give you this contract. And I think that's how they're going to attack this whole Tevin Jenkins contract situation. So now, let's get into the center position where this is weird. Ryan Bates, center, guard, all indications point to Ryan Bates being someone that they want to play at center. He's originally from Penn State, and he was a left tackle, and then moved around and ultimately is now the Bears' center. But he's really this versatile offensive lineman going into his sixth season, 6'4", 302, 27 years old, and has a cap hit of $4 million this season. But also, I had to pull his stats from 2022 because he really didn't play too much last season. And in 2022, this was when he actually played over 1,000 snaps. When he played then, he was more of a guard, had 2 sacks, and had 63.5 PFF grade, 58 grade against the run. 63.5 was the pass grade, 58 grade against the run, not great. 97.5 pass block efficiency, that's solid. And an overall grade of 61.4. Nothing crazy, just okay type of a grade. But also, a little bit more about him. 203 snaps at center that he's played, and truly has just been a backup in Buffalo. Now, we all remember that the Bears were trying to go after Ryan Bates, but he was a restricted free agent. Bears give him a contract offer. He accepts, but the Bills say, hey, we'll match that. We'll match that deal. Ryan Bates goes back to Buffalo, but ultimately we trade for him and bring him in. But also, I was hearing someone talk about Ryan Bates that was doing a Buffalo Bills podcast. And he was saying, he's like, listen, Bates at center, this guy is an incredibly agile and mobile, quick player. So he's like, that's why I can see that why the Bears want him at the center position, because of just the quickness and speed. So my big question with this, is he as good as Ryan Poles thinks? Because Ryan Poles clearly has identified that this is a guy that he wants to bring in. Or maybe it was Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach. This is someone that the Bears regime has identified as someone they want to bring in. Show us what you're worth, because you've been a kind of career backup. Show us what you can do. So I'm excited to see Ryan Bates in training camp. I'm excited to see him in preseason. I really do hope that he's everything that the Bears are hoping for, especially at that $4 million price tag. And we did, in fact, trade for him. So Ryan Bates, now the question, center or guard, where is he going to play? And a lot of this has to do with Nate Davis at the right guard spot, but also we'll talk about the backup, Coleman Shelton. Center, he originally played at Washington, going into his 6th season, 6'5", 285. So he is a little bit lighter than a lot of other offensive linemen. He's just a true center, 29 years old, signed a 1-year, $3.5 million deal from the LA Rams to come over to Chicago. And last season, as a starter, had 2 sacks allowed, and then had a PFF pass grade of 49.2, which was good for 28th in the NFL among centers. Not fantastic. A run grade of 74.6, which was 12th among centers, which is good. And a PFF pass block efficiency rate of 97.1, which is not great at that center position. You're looking for truly 98 or above at that center position, because you really shouldn't be allowing a lot of pressures unless your name is Lucas Patrick or Sam Mustipher. And his overall PFF grade last season was 17th among centers at 66.1. As you can imagine, really kind of being lifted up by that run blocking grade. And what I like about Coleman Shelton, and I've said this before on the show, I kind of hope that he becomes the center for the team. If I was the Bears, I would have him as the center and Ryan Bates as more the situational person that can move around, because you know injuries are going to happen to this offensive line. I also like Coleman Shelton because of his experience in the Sean McVay system with the Rams. He has those 5 years previous experience with the Rams, and that's why I like him. He understands the calls. He has the experience at center. And to me, I like my centers as centers. I don't like this whole move a guard to center, because centers aren't just blockers. They need to understand all the assignments. There's a lot more put on them than just blocking assignments. There's that cerebral part of it, and that's why I like Coleman Shelton at center. He's done it before. And having a rookie quarterback, give him a veteran center that's done it before. That's why I like the idea of Coleman Shelton starting at center and Bates being your util guy that can play center, play guard, play wherever you want him to be. So if anyone goes down, you don't then go, all right, Bates, you're now guard. Shelton, you're in. I think it's a better play to have Shelton out there, as long as he does look good. If he's a liability, absolute liability in the passing game, yeah, then maybe not. But overall, though, throughout his career, though, he has been a slightly below average center, in my opinion. And that's where, yeah, like you would want to have an upgrade at it, but I like this strategy of putting him at center. But yet again, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you disagree? Because that's why it's going to be a position battle. And also, will he be the better pick at center? That's the question, and that's why I do think he is. But I think that the reason why this is a discussion, the reason why it's being brought up, is because of this man right here, Nate Davis. Nate Davis, right guard out of UNC Charlotte, entering his 6th season in the NFL, 6'3", 316, 27 years old, and has a cap hit of $11.3 million. Last season, only allowed 1 sack according to PFF, had a PFF passing grade of 47.9, which was 63rd among offensive guards, a PFF run grade of 55.3, which was 57th amongst guards, an efficiency rate of 95.9, which yet again, you want it more around that 97 if you're a guard, and PFF grade of 52.9, which was 56 or 58th. So not great. Not great stats that I'm telling you. And truthfully, he had one of his worst seasons. I argue to say that this was his worst season. He lost his mother last season, which definitely affected his mood. And, I pray for him. It's an unfortunate circumstance. And I think we all agree that different people grieve differently. And I just hope that he comes back this year and performs like Nate Davis that we saw at Tennessee, where we saw consistent seasons of him playing well. And that's why, when we're watching him last season, I'm like, this isn't Nate Davis. This isn't the player that we saw at Tennessee. Something's going on. And something was. And he played in only 11 games last season. He just didn't seem like he was fully in the football playing shape. So to me, I really, really do hope that now answer back. Now get everything together. The hard part is all that we're kind of basing things off of is camps. And he's never been somebody that likes to practice, which doesn't sound like what the Bears want to do under Matt Eberflus, but Nate Davis really isn't a big practicer when it came down to it. So can he get back to this whole Tennessee form? And if worse comes to worse, you could potentially cut him, and it would be break even for saving. So you're not really saving all this money now, but it's really more of a break even. You would still have some cap penalty the next season. But I think ultimately, Nate Davis, I just hope that he comes back. I hope that he comes back to the same form because, yet again, you always root for your own players. And if Nate Davis can come back to that Tennessee form and play in the amount of games that he has been, and be that consistent player, now you can put truly whoever the best person at center is. So Nate Davis, I'm hoping for you. I'm pushing for you because the best thing for this team is for him to be great. And if he's not, cut him at the end then you would have to cut him at the end of the season, which you have an out for his contract at the end of this season. So that's ultimately what would happen with Nate Davis. But I'm rooting for him because why else would you not root for one of your own players? So Nate Davis, get back to form. But next, we got to talk about Darnell Wright. I think this is the one everyone's been looking forward to. Darnell Wright. And after this, we'll talk about the rookie that we drafted. But Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, going into his 2nd season, 23 years old, 6'5", 333 pounds of man. Cap hit of $4.76 million. Allowed 7 sacks according to PFF last season, and PFF pass grade of 61.4, which is good for 58th against among tackles. PFF run grade of 66, which is 36 among tackles. Pass block efficiency rate of 97.4, which is good which is pretty very 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 good. And then also a 62.4 PFF grade last season, which was 52nd among tackles. Now, I think when you look at some of these stats, you might go, wait, so he stunk? So he wasn't good, right? If these are the grades, like, I don't believe the grades. But I'll say this about Darnell Wright. We said this last season, that rookie offensive tackles need a year. No matter how good they are, there's only been like one in recent history that was phenomenal, and that was Rashawn Slater. But even like a Penei Sewell struggled his first season and didn't play like Penei Sewell his first season. So that's why this year I'm so excited to see Darnell Wright. And whenever we talk about Darnell Wright, I talk about how the offensive line YouTube that studies every single play, I'll watch those, and they just talk about Darnell Wright's form and what he puts on tape, where he's blocking someone with one hand and one hand free, so that if someone gets around him, he can then pop him with the other hand. And he's just very, very, very skilled at being, and he's so young at this position. And when you look at this too, it just adds to the fact that as an offensive lineman, you need time to develop. He only allowed 2 sacks after week 7 last season. So the 5 that he had were in the first 7 weeks of the season. He allowed 5 sacks. And after that, he's like, oh, I understand how to play in the NFL now. I'm getting used to this. I'm getting used to the speed. I'm getting used to the power. But something I want to just really hype him up for. Darnell Wright coming out of college was not a good not a good run blocker. And yes, you heard me right. People that actually watch the tape and not the highlight films, like his highlight films were fun because like when he had hands on you, he would just bulldoze you over. But when he was out in space and he had to figure out his pass blocking, his run blocking, he was very awkward with it. And that was the big thing with him, where you're like, this guy's giant. He should be an amazing run blocker. He was when he had his hands on you. But you really saw him take that step. And when I was watching the tape, I did not see that awkward run blocker that I saw in Tennessee. You really saw the coaching. You really saw him progress as a player, which is incredibly, incredibly promising. And you see him too throughout the season getting better and better. I am very optimistic on what we can see out of Darnell Wright this season. And even if he doesn't take this gigantic step, I don't think you give up on him. Yet again, similar to like what we said about Braxton Jones, give them at least 2 years as a starter. I mean, a total of 3 seasons, right? You could have 2 down seasons, then maybe that 3rd season is when you turn things around. Darnell Wright, I feel very good about the future of Darnell Wright. And so the question is he taking that step this season? And I think a lot of the signs point to yes, because another year under the system, and we saw this too with Tennessee, something that one of my critiques of him out of Tennessee was that, hey, he started as a 5-star recruit and looked bad. And then every season he did progress. And that's what I was saying too about his transition to the NFL. Give this man some time. He needs time to progress. He needs time to get used to this like he did at Tennessee. He needed time, and then he eventually became a 1st-round pick. Same thing. Give him time, and then I think you'll see him play like a phenomenal player. And also, too, a lot of those grades very similar to other rookies around that same area. So no cause for concern from my perspective with any of those grades. That's just how rookies are. That's how rookies are. I think we put too much stock into rookies of like, oh man, they're going to be unbelievable. They're rookies. This is the NFL. It's a hard job that they have. So Darnell Wright, I feel good about. But speaking of rookies, Karan Amagazi, the offensive tackle out of Yale that we drafted in the 3rd round, senior, 6'5", 323. And someone that he reminds me of is a lot of Braxton Jones, where he has that movement speed in the run blocking area where it's just fun to watch. The only weakness is when you see him block it, he is a little bit uptight when he's trying to block. doesn't like he needs to get more flexible with just his overall blocking sets. And also, yeah, you want to have some bend to just generate more power. Ultimately, winning the third round for us was the consensus 84th player on the consensus big board. He was my tackle number 8. He was the consensus tackle 13. Now, why was I so high on him? He gave me these wow plays. And the thing that I don't like about offensive tackles after the first round is typically offensive tackles after that first round are just projected players. They're like, oh, this is a really good athlete, but they were terrible. Like they weren't good. But he is a good athlete that was very, very good at Yale. So that's the reason why I really like him is he's got this, or a lot of times too, they don't have the size. They don't have the athleticism to play the position. This guy has the athleticism. He has the size. He has the length. And when you saw him actually play, he's just incredible. 98% pass block efficiency last season in 4 games played, 87.9 run grade. Just incredible and fun tape to watch. Has played both guard and tackle in the college level. So to me, I think that he could kind of move around a little bit. And you're hoping at least this year. The goal for this year is that you want him to be your primary swing tackle. That to me would be a plus. That to me is what you want to see. But he has been banged up. He had that hamstring injury that still has been ailing him a little bit. So he might not be there the first day of training camp, but it's something to watch out. When will he start to play? Because I think he's going to be a lot of fun. And also, he's a true Bears fan. I'll say this again. As a Bears fan, you would do everything in your power to be good, especially offensive line. He's been critical of the Bears offensive line, which makes me love him even more because he's like, hey, you guys got to protect. Now he has an opportunity to be that person to protect the offensive line. And that's why I really like Amagazi. I loved it that they drafted him. I thought it was a good selection because of just the other tackles that are around there. I just didn't expect much from the others. So good pick in my take. So we'll see what ultimately ends up happening. But let's finish this out with some over-unders, and then we can talk about did we get better. So from the over-under perspective, let's talk about the sacks. So how many sacks will this offensive line give up? This offensive line gave up 49 sacks last season. All right, I think it might have been, 49 sacks last season. And you might have been thinking too, when I'm talking about these sack numbers with offensive linemen, it doesn't add up to 49. It seems very low. And part of the reason is PFF charts sacks directly to offensive linemen that it was their fault on. So if, let's say, Justin Fields caused the sack because he held the ball too long, or he ran towards an offensive lineman where basically you're holding your guy, you're winning, you have your guy blocked, and the quarterback runs around and then he gets sacked by the person, that's not your fault. That is the quarterback's fault. That's what PFF tries to do with the sack numbers, is only fault the offensive lineman when it truly is their fault. So let's talk about this. 49 sacks, smash the under. That, to me, this offensive line, even though that Caleb Williams does hold the ball a little bit, we do have those stats, I think that you're going to see the sack number go down like crazy because Justin Fields did cause a lot of these sacks. He did. Did he cause every single one? No. Did offensive linemen get beat right in front of his face? Yes. Was Lucas Patrick terrible? Yes. So to me, it's going to be under. It's going to be under. If it's over, Lord help us. And we're going to have to blow up the entire offensive line. It's going to be under for the sacks perspective. I think you're going to see that go dramatically down, especially in this offense with the offensive weapons that you have. It should not be this high. Next, NFL rank 16. Higher or lower? Let me know down in the comments. So do you think that this is going to be an above average? Or do you think this is going to be below average? And to me, I'm going above average. I'm going to say that this is under 16. So it's going to be better than the 16th offensive line because when you look at it, I feel good about it. I feel like then the two spots, right? It's still that interior, the Ryan Bates, the Nate Davis. I expect Nate Davis to get back to the, yet again, get back to the way that he was. And then with Ryan Bates, you can move him over to guard if you want and have Coleman Shelton. So then you have kind of this okay right guard, this okay, slightly below average center, but then you have Tevin Jenkins, Darnell Wright, and Braxton Jones. So that's above average, in my opinion. So that's why I'm sticking with the above average grade that I'm giving to them. And then Pro Bowlers, 0.5. How many Pro Bowl offensive linemen will we have? Will we have 0? When I look at this, I think the biggest chance that we would have is Tevin Jenkins. And I'm going to say, because it's a contract year, I'm going to go over. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to go over because I think Tevin Jenkins stays healthy. It's a contract year. I think he looks dominant. I think that Bears Twitter is going to show out for the voting. Everyone's going to want to vote for Tevin Jenkins. I'm going to go over. I'm going to go Pro Bowl, Tevin Jenkins. Let's do that. And then extensions set at 0.5 for offensive line. How many offensive linemen will be extended? I'm going to go with 0. I'm going to say 0, even though I'm projecting, I'm doing the bold stance of Tevin Jenkins making the Pro Bowl. I'm going to say 0 extensions because you have to make the extension at a specific time. I think they're going to do what they did with Jalen Johnson. I think they're going to have him play it out and then sign him potentially at the end of the season to say, here's how you did. And if you're banged up or if you weren't consistent, we're going to give you banged up and not consistent numbers. But if you were great, then yeah, we'll pay you what you were worth. So I think ultimately that's what's going to happen with this offensive line group this season. So now to finish this up and wrap this up, did we get better? And arguably one of our biggest question mark positions of the season. So let's take a look at this. So we have Braxton Jones, and if we compare him to last year to this year, Braxton Jones, I would say, I expect some progression because of that neck injury, unless the neck injury is significantly worse than expected. Keep in mind, too, this neck injury, we didn't realize that he was playing with this. They just kind of said, hey, yeah, turns out Braxton's had this neck injury. And we didn't know about this. But turns out he actually shouldn't be playing right now. So we didn't know about this. So Braxton Jones, unless the neck injury is more serious, which I'm hoping it isn't, he should be better. And then you go to the left guard position with Tevin Jenkins. Yet again, I'm hoping he can stay healthier. I'm hoping that he can continue to progress at left guard. This is his second year at left guard. So I'm going to say, yes, I expect some progression out of him. And then at the interior, Cody Whitehair and Lucas Patrick versus Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates. If you can snap the ball straight, you're better than what Cody Whitehair did last season. And if you can stand in front of your player longer than 1 second, you did better than what Lucas Patrick did. I think it's a progression. I think that the center's a progression from that position. And then last, you have Darnell Wright and Nate Davis at the right guard positions. I think that Nate Davis and Darnell Wright, like I said, I think Darnell Wright should take a step next season. You saw it at the tail end. He was getting more familiar with the NFL game. And yet again, Nate Davis, coming off of a tragedy, should be better and hopefully can get his head on straight and be able to get back to the level that he was playing at Tennessee. So to me, this has been better. And also, I forgot to, and overall, I do think that this position group is better. But we haven't talked much about the other backups. And I want to discuss this before we wrap things up. Because Larry Borom is a giant question. Because it's clear, this regime is not a huge fan of Larry Borom. It seems like whenever we've heard anything about them with Larry Borom, he's too big. They want him lighter. They want faster offensive linemen. So insert Karan Amagazi. And I think that's where you're going to have that position battle. I don't think a Jake Curran or an Avion Collins is going to make this roster unless they really do not want Larry Borom on the team, which I don't think it's going to get to that level. But someone to look out for is Matt Pryor, the right guard. He's been a veteran. He understands this system. He was coming from San Francisco where he looked really good. He's played right guard. He's played right tackle. He has some positional versatility. And he has been the person that has been filling in when Nate Davis hasn't been out there. He's been getting some snaps when Davis wasn't there. They were switching around some other players, but Pryor was someone getting some snaps. Yet again, veteran experience over someone like a Ja'Tyre Carter. Definitely something to just keep an eye out for. How does Pryor look compared to Ja'Tyre Carter? Because Carter has always been an okay player. You haven't loved it when he's out there, but you could definitely get better from a backup perspective. So something to look out for. And last but not least, Doug Kramer, still on the roster, still just been stashed on the practice squad. If we really, really, really need a backup center, and let's say we move on from Nate Davis, Kramer could eventually be on this team as that backup for a Coleman Shelton. So lots of interesting storylines with this offensive line. Let me know what you think down below. Did we get better? How comfortable do you feel with this offensive line? I'm feeling good, but still that interior does scare me a little bit. But I'm excited to see what does Braxton Jones have to learn more about who he is as a player, and hopefully we see Darnell Wright just absolutely crush it. And if you're excited for the Bears this season, make sure to drop a like, make sure to subscribe, tell a friend, also download the podcast everywhere that you get your podcast. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a